picture. A hand-tinted blue and gray coaches. These are little yellow W's, I believe. Charleston, West Virginia would change into this beautiful station. An Atlantic Greyhound loading for Jacksonville there, 7:43. And a yellow 719 pulling in on the other side. Charleston was a pull-through, as you can see. She arrived on line in early 1936. This is what Charleston, West Virginia looked like in her heyday. Now, Charleston, West Virginia was not a segregated state. They did not have separate waiting rooms for the blacks. That was the Deep South, or the heavy Confederate states, as you would. Because Virginia wasn't the Deep South, but Virginia had all segregated waiting rooms. Ann Arbor, Michigan went from this little terminal in the 20s to this neat little pull-through here. But can you see something that signaled her death? Look at that. That's a solid pull-through, solid concrete. And look at how low it is. When coaches grew in height, little Ann Arbor would have to shut its doors and create all over again. Care to venture a guess? Deep South. If you remember this, you remember something all right. Atlanta Greyhound Station, days of yore. She would be modernized to look like this. The actual site that this station sits on is still in existence today. What they did is they modified and rebuilt right on the present site. She doesn't quite look like this anymore, I want to tell you. And this is a drastically modified picture showing the sky. There's nothing back there but buildings. This was her waiting room away back then. Now, Atlanta always was, and even to this day, Atlanta still looks like a working bus station. There's always a lot of cars coming and going there. She came in line in 1940. The restaurant out front was a very large restaurant in its day. Today it is a Burger King. Of course, as you can see, huge colored waiting room. You're back down in the Deep South again. Today, she looks like this. Today, Atlanta looks like this. But not for long. The city fathers are making a intermodal Port Authority type station, so this will be history now. You can get to see, this is, as a rule, this is about the northernmost point that the Golden Greyhounds have service to. They're all in the south over to New Orleans, up to Atlanta, for the most part. If desperate dispatcher will send it anywhere. But of course what that is the Dallas Dart buses. They took a bunch of them in. Never did letter them. To this day they're not lettered other than the name Greyhound on the nose so that somebody can see it coming up to a rural station to stop. Another neat place is San Antonio, Texas. Now, Southwestern Greyhound and Pacific Greyhound, they were great for constructing terminals that were straight drive-throughs. They did not want their buses backing up. Because 90% of all the bus accidents, that's what happens, is when they're backing up in the stations and whatnot. This is still in operation today. It's a neat little place. There's a magnificent terrazzo Greyhound dog artwork at the entrance foyer that you step on going in the station. San Jose, 1946. Of course, today the San Jose terminal only sees 1/10 of the service it used to see. Here's what she looks like today. At the moment, this is San Jose today. Everything's shut up in there. Gets virtually no service anymore. Hundreds of trips a day used to go through here. Still got a pretty neat old sign buried up in the back there. But it's history too. It's still operational, but essentially a ghost town. 1,000 trips a day. San Francisco itself is down to 12. Well, let's jump over to Tucson now. Take a look at the old Tucson station. Some interesting looking vehicles sitting out in front of that. Of course, when this picture was taken, these things were probably only about 10 years old, if that. True to keeping with Western style, the stations were pull-throughs. Pretty neat old looking sign up there, isn't it? Definitely interesting. Wonder where that old Greyhound dog ended up. Probably in the rubbish. Old Yellow Z getting ready to leave the old Roanoke, Virginia terminal. Now that car that's in that picture, that's no 10 years old. That's brand spanking new. Huntington Park, California. Now, Pacific Greyhound was great for these signs here. The Greyhound Bus Depot, those things hung on, oh mercy, all kinds of little commission agencies and whatnot. Of course, there's a perfect set of Silverside dogs on it too as well. Now let's jump over to Hollywood, California. Way back when, Hollywood had a neat little station. Here's what she looked like on the inside. Oh mercy, how about a gazillion movie hopefuls walk through that door. Some to happiness, probably most to tragedy. A lot of them hopefully got back home again when they realized their dream was never going to be fulfilled. Again, as you could see, they were pull-throughs. Again, the yellow coach sitting in there ready to go on the way to Santa Barbara. Anybody know where this is? That's the old Baltimore terminal. In those days, placed by this little girl. That's what she looked like on the inside, the new one. replaced from that little tiny room into a nice big spacious open area. It used to be mint clean in those days. How's this little Art Deco beauty? Bristol, Virginia. Is she adorable? Isn't that adorable? Here she is in a night shot with a Tennessee coach lines. Spiffy little old streamlined yellow coach sitting there taking on passengers, and just see the tip of a 743. Was her general configuration there. Of course, she did have a colored waiting room because she was in the South, the Confederate South. Virginia had a pretty gussy interior too, a pretty neat interior. Very bright, very airy. Big skylight up the top there, going out to the gates. A good waiting room. Now I'm going to throw one at you now that I know a lot of you folks are going to know. Yep, you guessed it. Buffalo, New York. Oh, she was quite the place in her heyday. You could watch Greyhounds here. This was a busy terminal, very busy terminal. You had a lot of Canadian cars coming in here too, because the falls in Canada were just a few miles northwest. Let's jump over to Cincinnati, Ohio. This is Cincinnati in you know, the very, very early days, when curbside loading was in effect. Not quite the prancing dog, but one of the very earliest Greyhound dogs. Of course, you notice the neon sign people were at work there. That was one of those dogs that ran when you put the lights on. Boy, I'd like to have one of them things. Emblem of service, it says on that little sign right there. Again, this is when Matthew Robinson from Goldman Sachs was busy creating a new image for Greyhound. Now the big sign on the corner didn't have the prancing dog. It had an actual, like, trotting dog. She would emerge into this in Cincinnati. Heaven knows, I don't think I know one IBCer that doesn't have this postcard in his collection. They must have made millions of this card. Everybody's got one. Now the back side, like this. Similar to Washington, she was a half round, you know, she was curved around. It's got a little Ohio Bus Company, looks like 4008, GM TDH 4008 or 4007 possibly, sitting in there. And over here, another Ohio bus, PGG 3701 looks like to be. Might be a 742. Little King Brothers 2900 series yellow coach there. And a 719 at the far left. A Capital Greyhound silver size and an Atlantic Greyhound 743 with the both the 743s, of course, got the Battle of Britain paint jobs on them. Okay, let's hop out to Sidney, Nebraska in Overland Greyhound lines. The memory of which comes to us via an old postcard, a relatively rare postcard. You don't see this one laying around the bins all the time. Have you ever stopped at Evansville, Indiana? Again, this half-round Art Deco style was very prevalent on corners. They got with their sign one street and another street at the same time. It's history now, but this was Mobile, Alabama. I shot in one nice warm night. No longer in existence. She looked like in the daylight hours. Now when I say no longer in existence, I mean she's no longer used. The building is still physically sitting on that corner. Whether the Greyhound Silverside dogs are gone and the sign, I don't know. The original headquarters for Overland Greyhound Lines, Omaha, Nebraska. Now, last I knew, this was still in operation. But again, I haven't been out that way in quite some time, so I cannot carve that in stone. She was a pull-through affair, L-shaped, dogleg in the back there. Here's another card that seems to have been made in great abundance because everybody's got one. Anyhow, you see where the buses came out over here, right here. They went around the building and came out here. I think it was paid off a gazillion years ago, so chances are it's still running. Although it's hard to tell with those people that are in Dallas now. You never know what to expect. One of the greatest Greyhound terminals that ever existed in the history of the company was the mighty Chicago one, down in the Loop. That's gone now. You'll never see that again. One really interesting town is Pittsburgh. Boy, they went through a lot of Greyhound stations in their time. There's the original little storefront job. Little tourist class hotel up above. Go next door and get yourself some beer and fruit. Then along came this little girl here. The late 30s, mid 30s. Nice running dog there and that big Art Deco sign. Then along came this little girl here with complete modifications. Located at William Penn Place. She was also served by Pennsylvania-Ohio coach lines. In the mid-40s, Penn, Ohio coach lines would become Ohio Greyhound, which was known for operating some pretty neat stuff as far as the bus fans go. I mean, how many of you ever saw a twin-coach Greyhound? Another really bustling hub during the 30s and the 40s was Syracuse, New York, shown here. Syracuse had quite a life. There was a garage there as well. This was where it all stemmed from, right here. The original Syracuse storefront Greyhound station. In Greyhound lines, low rates to all points in the United States. Again, this is back near Ground Zero in the early days of Greyhound. Now I have been in this terminal, so I can relate to this place. That's what it looked like street side. A lot of gates to it, I want to tell you. A lot of gates. This was the interior. My first ride on a Greyhound Scenicruiser was into this terminal. I boarded the coach at the old Sampson Air Force Base on Lake Geneva. In yesteryear, Vallejo, California was a pretty important stop, I want to tell you. Look at the lineup of coaches here, including the old Columbia Pickwick night coach. There were buses everywhere. There's one in the shadows in there. The night coach, or duplex as it's called now. See the milk cans? Yeah, they hauled them. Yellow Z sitting in there, a red cap out there smiling from ear to ear. And the tail end of a streamliner hanging her butt out there. Bevy of smiling beauties on the inside. Ladies' room upstairs. Of course, if y'all had a wheelchair in those days, well, good luck. Both bottled and draft beer were available, 10 cents. And this is what took the old original Terminals place right here. Little old yellow coach sitting over there in the drive-thru. Because she was relatively new when this was shot. Although this terminal would see service for many decades. A lot of the drive-thrus had to be demolished and rebuilt, or at least the arrival gates when the Scenicruisers and the 4104s came through, because the Silverside and the 743 were lower cars. This is still alive, the building, down in Waycross, Georgia. Again, it was an important point for cars coming east, west, and north, south. So it had a fairly substantial restaurant. This is the inside of Waycross. I don't know whether you can make it out. I'll try to go in and see if you can catch it. But there's a brand spanking new Buddy L 743 sitting on the counter for sale with box, mint condition. See it sitting there, right in the middle of your screen? Now, how would you like to have that Donald Duck pull toy over there? Boy, oh boy, whoever knew? Whoever knew that the world of nostalgia and collectibles was going to come to life? Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Oh, you could get dresses, a suit cleaned, 49 cents. The Union Barber Shop, taxis, and with his taxis, there's sometimes a bus station and cigar stand. This, of course, was the original Winston-Salem bus stop. The other side of it was a Chrysler Plymouth dealer. In the late 30s, when Greyhound was on their big Art Deco kick, this is what emerged for Winston-Salem. What makes this picture so interesting as far as I'm concerned is it taught me a couple of things. This is Ypsilanti, Michigan, back in near Ground Zero. But I want to show you something here. Look at this in the window. Huh? Big stand-up die-cast cutouts, die cutouts of yellow coach streamliners. Now, I knew they existed on the 743 and I knew they existed on the Silverside, but in 56 years of being on this planet, I have yet to see one of these things surface. Not one. And they obviously had them going either right hand or left hand, whichever direction you wanted to put them in. The 743 was out already, because you can see her right there in that well, they're announcing it'll be in service heavy, but you can see her right there. And look at that huge window decal up there for the Greyhound lines. Now that's the old blue one with the orange letters, the white dog, and the complete reproed engine forward at the time in the shield. I just, for kickers, asked my silk screen printer how much it would cost to repro that sucker, and you don't even want to know. Whoops, settle down, little camera. The short lines, shortway lines in Michigan also operated out of here. I mean, wouldn't you just kill for this old porcelain sign of Eastern Michigan motor buses? Eastern Michigan motor buses, as most all of you are aware, eventually became Great Lakes Greyhound, or part of the Great Lakes Greyhound system. But oh, I know people that would kill for that sign. Doing the windows. Getting ready to take back to San Francisco. Some unhappy gamblers. Well, again, maybe there was some winners on the bus. Who knows? But this is the